So this is the reporting services window. So I have opened a new project of the type reporting services, reporting project, and this is how it would appear. Now, we saw how to create a shared data source and how to create a shared data set. So we'll go through the steps once again and then create a report and add some features to it. Okay, so this is a report project one. This is a solution that is open, and within that you have your projects. Now within the project, you can go and create your shared data source. So to do that, you just have to select the shared data sources, right click on them and say add a new data source. So if you say add new data source, it will give a name to your data source. So let's give it a proper name called Adventure Works Data Warehouse. And then it will ask you for a connection string. So if you're not sure what exactly is the connection string, then you just need to click on the edit button over here. Type your server name. So if it is localhost, you can just type a dot. And select over here the database that you want to connect to. So since we are doing the reporting over the AdventureWorks Data Warehouse database, I'm going to select that database. If you want, you can test your connection over here. You'll get the test results. Test connection succeeded, so we are okay. Then go back to credentials. Okay, stay in okay. Over here, go back to credentials and make sure that the Windows authentication is selected. Say okay. So now we have created a shared data source that we are going to use for our reports. Now the second option is either to create a shared data set that we will be using across reports within the project, or we can create an embedded data set, which would be a data set which is specific to a particular report. So let's go and try to create an embedded data set. So for that, we will directly go to the Reports tab and right click and go to the Add button, select a new item, and out of the three choices that we have over here, we are going to select a report, and then you can give it any name. So let's call it SSAS training and add a report. Once you have added a report, you will see that it will appear within your reports folder. So now you have a report by the name of SSAS_training. And if you look in the middle, you'll see that there's a design window which is blank because we haven't added anything to the report as of now. And here we can start designing a report. So we have created a report. We already have a shared data source. So the next thing that we need to do is define a data set for the report, from where the data is going to come for the report. Now you have to go to the left-hand side within the report data toolbar, go to the data source and first add the shared data source that we are going to use for that report. So right click again, say add data source, and it's asking you to create. You can either have a choice to create a new data source over here, or you can select use shared data source reference, in which it will give you the shared data sources name. So now we have two. That's why it's giving us an option to select either of the two. Let's go with the new one that we have created, which is AdventureWorks Data Warehouse. The credentials we have already defined because we are using a shared data source. We cannot change that over here. Just say an OK. Now, once you have defined a data source, the next step is to define a data set. So before you can access the data in a report, you have to define your data source, and then you have to go and define your data set. So now I'm going to define a data set. Now, since I'm defining the data set within the designer window of this particular report that we have created, it's going to be an embedded data set, which means this data set would be available only for this report. It won't be available for any of the other reports within this project. On the other hand, if we would have clicked over here, share data sets, right click and created a new data set using this option, then the data set that we would have created would have been available across reports within the project. That is the difference between a shared data set and an embedded data set. So right click and say add data set. Now you can give a name for the data set. So this is going to be a report query, main report query. So we are going to say report data. Use a shared data set. So we are not using a shared data set. We are going to use a data set embedded in my report. So select that option. Once you have selected that option, it will ask you to select a data source. So go to this drop down, click over here, and this is the data source one that we had created. Select that. Now, once you have done that, you have an option again to write a query using which you would want to pull out the columns, pull out the data that you would want to appear in your report. So you have your query types as text or stored procedure. So if you have any stored procedure associated with your data source, they would be populated here. So you can either go and write a stored procedure in your database, which would be used to pull the data for the report, or you have an option to create a query over here as well. So if you already have a SQL and you know the SQL that you want for the report, you can just simply go and type it over here. Otherwise, if you want to be able to create it over here, just click on the query designer and it's very easy. So again, go back, cancel, it's not able to connect to a data source. So let's see what is the problem with the data source. So we have opened the data source again. In credentials, for some reason, it goes to do not use credentials, which is not the option that we selected. So we are going to select this option again called use Windows authentication. Say OK. Let's save it as well, just in case. Okay, now let's go back to the data sets. Do an add data set. The option of using a data set embedded in my report. Let's select the data source that we have for the report. And now let's go to the query designer and try to design a query. Now, if you click on the left-hand side, you can see that there's a database view over here. If you expand the tables, then you'll see that all the tables which you have in your data source are available over here. Now, the tables that we are going to select for our report are related to the product dimension. So we are going to go to the dim product and select the columns that we want. So we want the key columns. We want the product key. We want the product name. So just click on the product name. We might need the color, so let's just select it. And are we interested in the product line? And so on. Okay, so these are the columns I want from my dim product dimension. What else I want? The product category and subcategory. So let's go to those dimensions. Select the category key. Select the category name. Right? And let's go to the dim product subcategory dimension. Select the subcategory key and the subcategory name. So now I've selected all the attributes that I want in my data set for the report. So I want to be using all these attributes over here. So I have the list over here. Let's say OK. And a query will be generated by SSRS on its own. So you can see the query. It has selected all the fields that we selected in the query designer. And apart from that, it has performed all the relevant joins. So it was able to identify all the joins, relationship between the tables, and it has performed the joins on those key columns. So now once we have done that, we can just say OK and come out of it. So once we say OK, we can see on the left hand side, we have got this data set 1. Let's go to data set properties once again and change its name to report data. And apart from just giving names like that, a good way to do these things is to follow your naming standards. So since this is a data set, this is a report data set, we can give it an extension. We can give it a prefix, so we can follow something like DS report data. DS reports for report data. So whatever is the naming standard, it's a good practice to follow that across everything that we do, across all the objects that we create within that report. So DS report data, let's say OK. So the name changes and now it's a more meaningful name so that you are able to quickly recognize what exactly we are trying to do with this data set. Okay. So now this data set has been created and all the fields that we selected are visible over here. Now the next thing is that we need to do is to start designing a report. Now there is options of the designs that we can include in a report. The very first and the simplest and the most commonly used option is a table view. So we want the report to have a table view. So what we need to do next is go to the toolbox, and if it's not already visible for you, go to view option and select toolbox so that it's visible for you. And now in the toolbox, you'll see the various options, various objects that we can add to this report. The one that we're going to use now is called the table. So just click on table and drag and drop it over here. This is your area where you're going to design the report. Let's just make it small so that we have more area. So when you add a table, it adds a table, and it adds a 3 by 2, it adds 3 columns and 1 row. This is because this is the header row. Now you can move this wherever you want, okay, in terms of formatting, if you want to do any kind of formatting, if you want to change its size and so on. So all this can be done easily. But before doing all that formatting, let's add some data to this report. So if you hover on the cell within the report, so you can see over here that it has 2 rows. The first one is called the header, which would be your column names, and then this is your actual data records. All right. So if you take your mouse over the data, first cell of the data row, then there is this button that you will see. If you click on that, you'll see the names of all the data sets that are available to you. All right. So now what do you want to display over here? I want to display my product name. Or rather, let's start with the product category. So I want to display my product category. That would be my first column. Then I want to go and display my product subcategory. Let me add that column as well. And then I want to display my product name. And I want to add another column. So just select any row, any column of this whole table structure and do an insert column towards the right. All right. Let's expand this as well. And the column I want to add is, let's say, product line. Okay. And let's add another column as well. So insert column towards the right and add another column called color. So now all this data has been added to a report design. At any point of time when we are designing the report, we can go to the preview tab and see a preview of how the report would actually look with the data in it. So once you do preview, it would present you a preview of your report. Now this is how your report is going to look with the design that we have just made. All right, so this is your header record with all the column names, and then these are your data records. Okay, so it looks very simplistic. We need to format it a bit to make it look properly, and then this column, the data in this column is not coming in a single line, so we need to format it a little. So there's a little bit of formatting that we want to do, and then these names are not really neat, so we need to make some changes to the name as well. So for that, just go back to the design view, and let's select the whole thing over here, and you can see this. We can see this table. Let's move it a little on the left hand side so that we have some more space. All right, so this selected, and when this line comes, you can just move the whole thing. The next thing we want to do is change the column names. So English product name and all that, we do not want that. So click on that. I just want to see my product category. All right, so let me give it that name. Then I just want to see my product subcategory. So let's make the name proper. All right, and then product. Now we saw that the product name was not coming properly, so the next thing we are going to do is select that particular record, and this tab would come. Once it comes, just click on this to expand it. Alright, wait a little bit and click back and just expand this line as you would normally do in any of the Excel sheet and so on. Now let's do some more formatting and then we'll see a preview of the report. Now the next thing I want to do is probably add more features, add more formatting to my header record to distinguish it out properly. So I'm going to select on the left hand side over here, and you'll see that the whole record gets selected. Alright, now the whole record gets selected. What all formatting options do I have? I can go at the top, and I can see that there are a lot of formatting options over here. First thing I want to do is make the product names as bold. Second thing I want to do is align them to the center. So let's use that. And then I want to add some color. So I can add some background color. Let's add, let's say, a pale yellow, which is khaki. And then even for the foreground color, let's add some color. And select over here, and just select the colors as you would normally do. Okay, so this is how your report, we have formatted the header of the report. And now if you go to the preview tab, this is how our report would look. So this looks much better than what we had earlier, right? Okay. So let's head back to the design view. And now what I want to do is probably add a report description. So one line that says the name of the report. So I'm going to select over here, this whole thing, right click, and then I'm going to insert a row above. So now I have this row. And then I'm going to select the column in this particular row and select all the columns, because I'm just going to write my report name now on this place. Let me change the color, the background color, to make it distinct again. Let's make it orange for now. And then the next thing I want to do is right click over here, all right, and merge the cells so that it's one single cell now. And then I can write my report name. So let's say it's the product report. So I can write my name over here. I can change the formatting for this. I want it to be a little bigger than others, so I want it like this. And I want to change the color and so on. So do a preview. So this is a good thing about reporting services, that you can do a preview as you keep on making changes to your design. All right. Let's head back to the design now. Okay. So now what else do we want to do? Okay, let's go back to the preview. And you'll see that you've got all this data over here. You can scroll down till the bottom. Okay. And these are your pages, so you can go to the next page by clicking over it. And then you again have all that data. Want to go to the next page and so on. So you'll have all the pages. If you just click on this last page button, you'll go to your last page, which is your 10th page of the column, and click on this to go back to the first page. Okay. So let's head back to the design view and make some more changes to this report. Okay, so now we have a report data over here. If we right click on it and go to dataset properties, okay, we can see our fields over here, which we have selected. We can see our options over here. Okay, any filters that we have applied and the parameters. And if you click on any of these cells, you will see that you get some properties over here on the right hand side. Okay, so there are various properties which would help you to again format this or define the features of this particular column. Okay, so the